I'm Marie Vigourou.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And this is Rude Eats, a delicious podcast where we sink our teeth into every episode of the show Hannibal.
I want Will Graham, I really do. And I think that we could have some fun. Then you can do anything you like. I might even go and help you catch the shrike. I want Will Graham, I want that man. For every meal and on demand. His mind shines and his body's cut. I know that he works for the FBI, but what other man has pure empathy and the ability to see my mind? Jack, what other thing have I ever asked you for? Besides, never looking into my pantry? And I won't get that either. Damn. I want Will Graham, I want him so. And he really doesn't need to know what's in my meals or on my mind. I just want Will Graham to be mine. I want him and I want him now. I said before, I don't care how. I'll give him tests, he'll draw a clock. And then his dark desires I will unlock. We'll be together, Will and me. We'll throw some grand dinner parties. We'll cut the flesh, we'll cook the meat. He'll eat the food just like me. Give me goddamn Will Graham.
Jeremy, how are you doing today?
I am doing very, very well. How are you doing?
Ooh, I'm a little weary about talking about this episode.
It's something you didn't expect. I think
no,
because I think from the first episode you didn't realize that Abigail was going to be such a prominent feature of the series. And I've kind of waited to do this until this episode specifically because it's so Abigail focused. Do you recognize Abigail from any other TV shows that you may have covered on your podcast?
Yes, I know she was on Supernatural because I looked her up
Yes,
after. I was like,
yes.
I need to know where she was from because I know her. And she's in that episode where she has a similar wound on her neck, actually.
Yeah, it's so
with
weird.
Sam in the asylum, right? Mm-hmm. In the mental health facility.
I'm so glad you do that already. That's
man.
so exciting. Yeah, so we have both talked about Abigail before on our respective Supernatural podcasts, which is very funny.
We really
Yeah, this is a very intense episode, and I want to warn you. So since we've last spoken, I've edited the video for our theme, and we've released that, and everybody loves it. Obviously, podcast time travel being what it is, nothing but glowing comments. In doing that, I went through all of season 1. Basically 10 seconds at a time to pull clips to, compose the video. And I just want to apologize in advance. I'm sorry for what I'm about to put you through. This is going to be a long season, and I'm so sorry.
So I told my best friend that I was watching Hannibal. And her first reaction was, oh. I was like, oh no. What is it? What do you mean? I'm like, I've been warned that it's really graphic, I'm okay with it. And she goes, no, the Abigail storyline is going to be really challenging for you.
Interesting. Okay.
And I was like, oh no.
It's
because this episode really hit I had a visceral reaction to it. I was shaking the first time that I saw it. It was just that was psychological horror in a way that the show hasn't managed to do before, or that at least it hasn't maybe tried or anything. But I just found this episode to be the most disturbing one of all of the other ones so far.
Yeah, and again, I am sorry for what you're going to experience this season.
Oh,
because
no.
I'm not going to say it gets worse, but I will say that it doesn't necessarily get any better. So why don't you tell the folks at home what episode we're covering?
Today we are covering Hannibal Season 1, Episode 3, Potage, which aired on April 18th, 2013, written by David Fury, Chris Brancato, and Brian Fuller, directed by David Slade.
The description of this episode is, under Jack Crawford's authority, Alana, Will, and Hannibal take Abigail back to her home in Minnesota. While they are there, the copycat strikes again, and a suspicious man stalking Abigail for her father's crime goes missing. As we always do, we like to talk about the title of the episode, potage, which comes from the Old French as a term for a thick soup or stew made by boiling vegetables, grains, and maybe some meat or fish. It was considered a staple food for many centuries. And it was kind of like peasantry food, right? Like it was something that you could kind of keep on the stove or keep on the fire in a big pot and just continually add to. And I kind of find it fascinating, the idea of like an ever stew kind of situation, because down here it's gumbo. Like gumbo is like a thing that you make a roux and you just put like whatever weird animals you found in your yard in it, and it makes it delicious. So this works for me a lot.
I mean, it's one of those things. So like I know potage as like a blended vegetable soup. So like I guess that would be like the more modern definition of it, where you can use any vegetables from your fridge that have been there for a little bit too long. So like it's this idea of honoring every part of the vegetable, you know, seeing as they're blended. Like it doesn't matter if they don't look good or if they're like they have like a little bit of like ugly bits. Like you just chop those up and just put it in there and blend it, and it tastes great. And I feel like this episode is a lot about that.
Yeah, of course, this is going to tie in directly to some a major theme of this episode, which is like honoring every part of the kill, whether that's deer or possibly human. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff. So let's jump in and deal with the trauma. So we're going to start out with Abigail and Garrett, her father. They're in the woods hunting. They've sighted a doe in the field, and Abigail raises her gun. This is interesting to me because there's no dates on this. It's not like 5 years ago or anything. But I think they intentionally like made her look younger. And it looks like this is her first time like killing something. And so when she shoots, and she shoots twice to kill the doe, Garrett seems excited, but she seems very shaken by the whole thing. And it's definitely something I remember being a young child. I grew up in a hunting family, and killing a deer, and being very shaken by it. Like it was very strange. Yeah. And in fact, my grandfather, I'll never forget this for all of my life, and it taught me a lot about just how to deal with children in general. We were at a hunting stand one day, and it was like 5 a.m. and it was freezing. And he looks over and he goes, "Jeremy, are you having fun?" And I was like, "No, Papa, I'm not having any fun right now." And he's like, "Let me take you back to the house. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, if you're not having fun, we should do something else together." And because that was what he did for fun, right? And I'm just sitting there as a miserable kid, but he was like, "No, we need to take care of this child first." And it's always very meaningful to me, and I just wanted to bring it up. So,
I mean, I can see why it's meaningful, and you can tell here that like the same consideration isn't necessarily given to Abigail in this moment. Like Garrett just like pushes her, I guess, to do this, or maybe she feels, maybe this is me projecting, but I think maybe she feels obligated to do this because this is something that she does with her dad, and like, a little bit like you and your papa, right? Like, so it sort of feels like that to me. And until you mentioned it, I never even considered that it would not be her first kill. Like I immediately imagined that that's what it was, but now I don't know, because this episode is all about like gaslighting you into making you think certain things and then like proving you wrong. So I don't know anymore. I don't know anything.
And there's, the question of one of the other, I guess, kind of themes in this episode is the question of what does Abigail know, and what is she willing to talk about? And that plays into this, right? Like, is this her first kill? Is this something that she's done a lot? And it definitely seems that way. As they take the doe back to the hunting camp, they talk about she almost protests, right? She's thinking about all of the reasons why she shouldn't have killed this doe. Of like, they have a 4-year-old, like they could be compared to a 4-year-old human. They care about their environment, all these things. And Garrett listens to this, and he doesn't like dismiss this, which I think would be the easy response. Instead, he says, "You're absolutely right, which is why we're going to honor every part of her. None of her will go to waste." And this is, again, like, we're going to be driving this home for the rest of the episode. So get ready we're going to honor her. Yeah. We're going to talk about it a lot.
Yeah. And it's really like this is where it starts, because I find that in this episode there's so much double speak, right? Like there are two stories that are happening at the same time, and I'm not sure that I fully understood the second story because I'm missing bits and pieces of it. But here we have like the first example of double speak, which really hammers home the horror factor for me, because on the surface Garrett is talking about the doe, but you know that he's also talking about the girls that he's killed. And like, this is the first instance of that, but there's going to be so many others. And I'm sure a bunch of them that I'm not catching because I still don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's good.
I hate this so much.
It's so good. It's so good.
I know. I love it. I hate it. I love it.
He hands her a knife and she begins to gut the animal. He specifically says, damage the organs and you'll ruin the meat. This is a thing that, like, whenever I saw deers being processed, they were always like hung up so that the blood would like drain out to the ground, and like having this on a table is very unusual to me, which doesn't really matter. But he very specifically says, like, or excuse me, Abigail says, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to eat her after we do all of this. And that's something that I remember as a kid, of like watching the blood drain from a deer that my grandfather killed and thinking like, oh, grandma's going to make deer burgers tonight. And it's not from that deer, but it's from a previous deer that looked exactly like this. And I still ate the deer burger. Like I still did it. But also it was a weird thing to wrap your head around, of like, oh, we killed this animal and we're going to consume his flesh.
Yeah, it is really weird, especially given how disconnected we are as, like, I guess, modern human beings from like the food chain, right? Like where we buy meat at the grocery store or at the butcher's, and it's like we never really have to kill our meat, right? But there was a time where you would only eat meat if you killed an animal, right?
Exactly.
So definitely a weird thing for modern humans or like city humans to think about.
Abigail begins to slice open the fur. She talks about how soft the doe is. And at some point, the doe fur turns into a human hair with hands running through it. And a head is pulled back. This is the corpse of one of the girls that Garrett Jacob Hobbs has killed. And Abigail wakes up in the hospital. She's been in a coma since her father attacked her in the first episode. So she wakes up and she's like intubated, and she's got, sensors all over. So she's just absolutely freaking out, and not having a good day
no,
at all.
I mean, yeah, no, I don't think she's been having good days, frankly, like since watching her mom get murdered and, all of that fun stuff. But she's already having nightmares, right? Like what wakes her up from the coma is this nightmare. Or now, I don't know, maybe memory. I don't know anymore.
What does she know?
I don't know about the double speak. What does she know?
Now you know how Jack
what
Crawford
has she
feels,
done?
right? Like you're the Jack Crawford POV in this episode of like, what does Abigail know? What does she actually know?
I guess so. I feel like Jack thinks that she's involved. Like I don't know that I really fall into that yet. But he definitely thinks that she's involved. Yeah.
We get our intro, and then we go over to Will's house, who is in his boxer shorts as he's letting his dogs out to roam around. And Alana shows up. She is snuck up in her electric vehicle. I feel like in a modern show, she'd be like, my Toyota Prius. Like, instead, she just says, my electric vehicle. Is super quiet, great for stalking. And she tells him that Abigail has woken up, and he immediately is like, I'm going to go put on a coat. And she's like, actually, let's have coffee first. Like, let's talk. And she wants to have this discussion because, as you just mentioned, Jack believes that Abigail is a part of these murders. She doesn't necessarily believe that, but all of that aside, she does believe that whoever talks to Abigail first about this can't have been involved in the trauma that she experienced at the hands of her father. So no Dr. Lecter, no Special Agent Will Graham, and she's volunteering her own time to be there.
And I don't think she's wrong about that. I think Alana turns out to be right about a lot of stuff in this episode, and this is one of the things that I think she's right about.
Yeah, I've since we last spoke, I've read 3 of the Hannibal books and watched one of the movies. So you might say,
and people make fun of me for binging content.
I know, right? Yeah, it's ridiculous. I'm Hannibal pilled right now. I'm having dreams about Hannibal.
Oh no!
And I had forgotten that Alan Bloom is in the books, and they gender flipped her to Alana Bloom in the movies, or excuse me, in this TV show. And in the books, like, she's just basically like a person that backs Will up sometimes, right? Like another one. She's not directly involved like this. And I just love the fact that, like, she is really the only voice of reason for Abigail in this entire episode. Because you can, throughout it, you can tell Hannibal Lecter has his own agenda, which he's just like, which seems to be just staring at people. Like, that's his whole thing. He's just and then, of course, Will Graham is in his own little, like, world, his, like, you know, his make-believe world. Like, Alana starts here is, like, very much, like, on Abigail's side, and I just love that.
I mean, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but it sort of feels like, especially when it comes to Will and Alana, like, Will is like, of course she can have 17 lollipops if she wants to have them. And Alana is like, are you crazy? Of course she can't do that.
She's a child. Like, Will, what are you doing?
She's a child.
And she also, like, kind of makes a point. She says something here about, like, dogs can keep promises and people can't. And talks about, Will says, like, I'm not collecting strays. And she basically just volunteers to say, like, I want to go and deal with Abigail on my own terms. And she does. She brings, like, she goes to the psychiatric hospital and brings clothes and music. She has a weird line here about, like, how she has gift cards and she's really, really bad at using gift cards, which I think is just a real interesting line, like a real interesting, like, insight to Alana. I like Alana a lot, by the way. She's one of my favorite characters.
See, I don't trust her since that moment where she openly lied to Will. So now I'm like, I don't know anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't trust anybody on this goddamn TV show.
That's probably a good thing to do.
Right. Yeah.
Apologies. The UPS has arrived and my dogs are going crazy in the living room. So if you like coming through on the mic, I'm sorry. They'll stop.
Yeah. I mean, no, now that you mention it, I hear it, but I didn't hear it before. But it's okay. Fluffy has been singing the song of his people. So we're all good.
Thank you, Fluffy.
Yeah.
Abigail kind of questions, like, who Alana is, what she's doing there, and starts asking general questions about, you know, her parents being dead, ask who buried them. There's an interesting moment here where she says that she remembered the attack, and Alana says, well, you told the nurses that you didn't remember. She goes, oh, I remembered. I just didn't want to talk to it about them. And this is, I think, maybe our first clue that Abigail is not quite on the level, should we say.
Right. Well, so, okay. The first time that I watched this didn't shock me in any way. But since then, I've rewatched the episode and I read your notes. And so, so yeah, when I first watched it, I thought about how, so I survived a school shooting, and after, like, especially in the first couple weeks, like, I was completely numb to it. Like, I would just tell and retell what happened to anyone who asked, really without showing any kind of emotion. Like, I would describe, like, really disturbing things without feeling them. And I was thinking about, like, what I was going to have to do. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to have to do some therapy about that. Like, but I was completely disconnected from it. And so I didn't think that Abigail's behavior was weird, because I was like, oh, I've been there. I get that. Sure. But now I'm thinking maybe that was me, like, projecting to her.
I think it could be both. I think it could definitely be both. And I think that's the most interesting part of this episode too, is, like, how well it tries the line. Like, it doesn't lean one way or the other. And at the end of the episode, like, we're still going to be left guessing about where her, you know, what she knows, what her history is, what her motivations are. It's really fascinating.
Well, I'm definitely going to be left guessing. You know already, but I don't.
I know everything. Yes, I know everything. Let me tell you about. It's so interesting too, just having read the books just so recently. This whole Garrett Jacob Hobbs thing is literally a throwaway line in Red Dragon, which is the book that this is based on. Like, it's just a case Will solved. Like, it's not even, like, it's literally just a line. Like, that's it.
So how did you react to Abigail, like, when you first watched this? Like, what was your first impression of her?
So I'm a big brother to, like, 3 little sisters. And I remember wanting to be very protective. Like, I was on Alana's side of this. I immediately thought that Jack wanted to use her for his own advantage, which he explicitly states later in the episode.
Yep.
And I thought that, knowing everything I know about Hannibal Lecter, I was like, well, we got to keep her away from that dude. That's not going to be good at all. And then the same thing with Will. I didn't really understand Will's character yet, because it's still early on, right? And this was a huge market departure from the original material. So I wanted to be very protective of Abigail. So when she was experiencing this, I was kind of in the same way that you were, of like, oh, she woke up in shock. She's terrified. She's just doing everything she can protect herself. And this is going to continue when, like, you see in the next scene where when Alana makes her report back to Jack and calls her manipulative, and even Hannibal Lecter makes the point of, like, she could be manipulative without being a killer, without being a murderer.
Yes.
and when Hannibal Lecter is stepping up, what are we doing?
And that's the thing, right? Like, this girl was raised by a serial killer, right? As far as we know. So we don't really know how this man was within their family. Like, she says that he was loving until he wasn't, but, like, what is loving when it comes to, like, weird family dynamics like that, right? Like, this man may have been feeding them human beings without their knowledge. Like, how loving is that really, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of thinking that, like, she had to learn to survive, like, especially emotionally survive in that household. And, like, manipulation can be a response to complex trauma like this. So I'm very much on Abigail's side. Like, I don't think that being manipulative means that she's automatically a killer.
Jack wants Will to go see her, which Alana is very much against. And he, like, checks in with Hannibal on this in a kind of a funny, like, aside. There's so many, like, cuts to Hannibal in this that I feel like and cuts to Hannibal, honestly, great name for a podcast if you're going to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, it's true. Cuts to Hannibal
works in several different ways. But like, there's just so many shots of, like, what's Hannibal's reaction to this, and he's like, yeah, like, he's like,
oh yeah.
We jump over to Will teaching in his classroom. He's teaching the case of Garrett Jacob Hobbs. He notes that all of the victims look like Abigail, and as he starts talking about the copycat, who walks in but Hannibal himself? And he actually says, like, you know, this person who killed her was, like, better. He elevated this killing to art, and like, again, cut to Hannibal, take a drink.
Yes, and he's just, like, smiling. You know, like, those were so he happy. Heard words of love. He's like, oh, praise! I didn't know that I enjoyed that. You know, like, this was foreplay. This was foreplay.
You have that in your notes, and I'm so excited that you said that. That's hilarious because it's exactly. It's very, very apt. Like, it's very, like, this is the way that you get his attention, right? Like, you flatter him. And this is, like, throughout any adaptation of the series, but especially this one, like, flattery will get you anywhere, especially if it comes from someone that he's interested in. And of course, he's already expressed a lot of interest in Will. Yeah. And then Will brings up, like, hey, this killer probably knew Garrett Jacob Hobbs because he did such a good job of imitating the kill. And then, of course, the phone call. He thinks that this copycat was the person that called and warned Garrett Jacob Hobbs.
Exactly. And the fact that, like, he put that together is making Hannibal just, like, beam with, like, pride, you know? I'm like, oh my God.
We're going to jump back to Abigail, and our friend Freddie Lowndes has managed to sneak in here. It's such a marked difference from the book Freddie Lowndes, who is like a greasy reporter kind of character, doing anything he possibly can for the story. Philip Seymour Hoffman plays him in one of the movies, and it's just greasy hair and, like, willing to do anything. This Freddie Lowndes is markedly different. She's very manipulative. We see that from the very beginning, where she tells Abigail, like, you have to get your story out. Your story is very important. I can help you tell your truth. You don't want to listen to these FBI agents. They're not even FBI agents. Like, you know, he's insane. And he's, of course, saying this as Will is walking in the room. And it's interesting, the back and forth that she has with Abigail, because Abigail, like, I expected her to be on the defensive, but she's relatively aggressive with Freddie, like, especially when Freddie's like, you know, if you tell me what you know, I can tell you what I can fill in the blanks. And Abigail responds like, why don't you tell me what you know? Like, that's so good. Right?
It was so good. And I think I was impressed with the show here, because I think they do something super, super smart, because we as the audience are prepped to look out for any signs of manipulation from Abigail at this point, right? Just because of what Alana has said. And, like, she manipulates Freddie so well. Like, Freddie is not even aware that she's being manipulated, because she's probably thinking, like, oh, this young girl is not a threat to me. But we see Abigail quite differently, and we see her get like all of the information that she wanted out of Freddie, and she gives like very little to none back to her. And this kind of comes back to what Alana was saying, like withholding information to gain information. So like now we're starting to have a distrust of Abigail as well.
And what a brilliant move to do this, like against Freddie Lowndes, who is somebody that we distrust immediately, right? Like she's a reporter.
And we
like,
don't like her.
We don't like her, even though she's beautiful and we love her. Like we don't like her.
I was actually thinking about this because I rewatched the episode today, and I'm like, I hate her so much, but she's so pretty. I feel that.
They talk about her dad's killings. Abigail wonders if she's as sick as her dad. And then, as I mentioned earlier, she's talking about Will Graham as Will and Hannibal enter and basically just bum rushed Freddie out. I love the moment where Freddie offers her business card to Abigail and Will does like a very petulant grab and just stuffs it in his pocket.
Yeah.
Like it's very childish. Like he just reaches out and snatches it from her.
Yeah, I love that moment, actually. It was really great. And there's just one line that I want to come back to, because she does say to Abigail, what you tell everyone is going to define the rest of your life. And oh boy, do we see that later on.
Oh yeah, it's going to be very important.
Oh yeah.
After they get Freddie out, Will introduces Hannibal and asks like, hey, do you remember me? And she's like, yeah. Or she says, I remember you, talking to Will. And says, you killed my dad. And Will's face is very intense. We should note that he's making eye contact here, which I find fascinating because throughout most of this episode, he does not do that with anybody except Abigail.
I mean, again, I think it's like that connection that he has created with her, right, while she was in the coma. But it does make me wonder, because, okay, when I watched this the first time, I was like, well, she's obviously going to remember Hannibal's voice, like, because his accent is so specific, right? Like, she was the one to answer the phone, and Hannibal knows that. Like, he knows that she picked up the phone. And I'm like, does she not recognize him? Like, what's going on here? I just couldn't wrap my head around the fact that she wouldn't recognize his accent.
Yeah, it's very distinct, right? Like this kind of Eastern European kind of such thing that he's going for. Very, very educated, very melodic. Like he has a very unique voice. That dude could be a voice actor, and I'd be like, oh, I know who that is. That's the guy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's old Mads. And you don't. And there's gonna be a couple of times where you think like, does she know it was Hannibal? And we're going to explore that a lot in the episode. They decide to go for a walk. Will apologizes for not saving her mother. And then they talk about, Abigail talks about like, you know, how her father was loving right up until the second that he wasn't. And then she's worried about nightmares and says, I'm going to be messed up, aren't I? And there's a line that's lifted directly out of the book that is actually from, ironically, Will and his son, or like stepson, where she says, so killing somebody feels that bad, as Will like expresses kind of the horror about it. And he says, it's the ugliest thing in the world. And again, take a shot, cut to Hannibal when he says this, because Hannibal is very interested in Will's impressions of killing. Like he wants to get at that. So I just love it so much.
It's so funny. Like, and that, like you said, like there's a lot of tension in this scene, in part because of like the cut to Hannibal and the way that he's looking at Will. Like he is like, yeah, it's like, keep it in your pants, Hannibal. Like this is inappropriate. Like put it back in. But there's also the fact that Abigail felt like crap when she killed the doe, right, that we saw earlier. So I'm like, why is she asking if killing somebody feels that bad? Of course, if killing a doe feels bad, then like, of course, killing a human is going to feel worse, no matter the reason. Like, again, weird.
It is very weird. They wrap up with her, and Will and Hannibal go to Hannibal's extremely expensive, like Rolls Royce car. It looks like, Jesus Christ, Hannibal, why are you driving this around? Like this should be in a garage. Probably like a $300,000 vehicle that he's just rolling around with Will Graham in. Oh
my God.
Freddie Lowndes.
You see them rolling, they hate him.
They hate him. Yeah, absolutely. We need to change the theme, Mary. It's not too late. We have a couple of weeks before we officially launch. Let's do a new video. Let's do a new song.
Hey Jake.
Hey Jake, come here.
Guess what?
Jake would be so down. He would be immediately down.
Season 2, maybe.
Season 2, yeah. Freddie Lounge is here. Will won't look her in the eyes, and she says some really weird stuff here, because he mentions that she called him insane, and she's like, I can undo that, or I could make it worse, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then eventually he responds with this classic line of, it's not very smart to piss off a guy who thinks about killing people for a living. And it once again, cut to Hannibal. Like,
yes, there you go.
I'm just going to go ahead and
he's loving this. He's like, yeah.
Cut to Hannibal, because we're just there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love this because we smash cut to Jack repeating this line as he's reading the articles that she wrote about it.
Yes.
And he's mad at Hannibal, and he says like, hey, I thought you could keep him from saying this. And Hannibal, I love this response of, I trust Will to speak his mind. It's such a great response. Like, I'm keeping that in my back pocket for like, why did your friend say such and such? Like, I don't know. Yeah, trust him to speak his mind.
I trust him to speak his mind. And it's, again, like also this idea of like, well, again, I don't know. I don't want to give Hannibal Lecter too much credit, but it seems like so many people are babying Will in so many ways, and Hannibal is kind of not, and I appreciate that.
That's one of the things throughout the fiction that I find is interesting about Hannibal, is like he doesn't cut people any sort of slack for any reason. It's like he treats Will on Will's own terms. Like, it's never like, oh, we have to baby step around Will because he does X, Y, or Z. It's like, no, I'm just going to talk to him like a human being. And again, we absolutely do not have to hand it to the Hannibal Lecter, right? We absolutely do not have to. But
exactly.
They
like, I do not condone cannibalism, but I do love that he treats Will like an equal, right? Like,
there's a joke going around I saw a comedian do where the comedian says is a niece or a nephew or somebody told him that Taylor Swift was bigger than Michael Jackson. And he said, well, she's going to have to do some pretty rough stuff, because there's a difference between liking someone and liking someone despite the allegations. And so far, there's no allegations against Taylor Swift. And I just thought that was really funny. So like, yeah, we love Hannibal despite the allegations.
Right. There you go. Exactly. The allegations. Allegedly
the cannibal.
People.
Yeah, we actually we haven't seen him do anything. We just assume in episode 3 that he's doing all of this.
Well, I mean, we did see him cut up a pair of lungs, right?
Well, we saw him cut up the lungs, but like those could be like goat lungs, right? We don't know. Just because they also showed us a human body missing lungs doesn't necessarily mean
it's all circumstantial.
It's
okay,
very circumstantial evidence. I'm just saying.
Okay, all right. I'll give you that.
They discussed taking Abigail back to her home where she was attacked in. Alana is a hard no. Hannibal agrees with her, but also says it could possibly help. I love Jack's line here where he says, we have a difference of opinion, so I'm going to go with the one that furthers my agenda.
I mean, you got to hand it to Jack for the honesty. Like, again, I hate that he's doing this, but I appreciate that he's honest about it.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, he doesn't pretend to care about Abigail. He's like, no, all I care about is my investigation. There's something that Alana says here that, again, I find really important later on, is like, you take her home, she may experience intense emotion, react aggressively, or reenact some aspect of the traumatic event without realizing it. And like I said, I'm still a little bit suspicious of Alana since she openly lied to Will, but she kind of turns out to be 3 for 3 on this one.
Yeah. She has, no matter what she's doing with Will, she has Abigail's best interest at heart, way more than Jack Crawford does, way more than Hannibal the Cannibal, and even maybe more than Will, who seems like he's got his own personal shit wrapped up with her, right? Like, it's not like he directly cares for Abigail. Like, it's I don't want to say anything. Like, I was like, let me talk about a bunch of emotions that Will has in 4 episodes, but no, we'll just hold off on all that.
No, but I mean, like, I think even just there, like, I think it's more about, like, when people say they're sorry, but they don't really, like, it's more about unburdening themselves rather than really making amends with the person. Like, it sort of feels like that to me. And, like, not a moral judgment or anything. Like, I'm just kind of calling it the way that I'm seeing it right now. It feels like Will is more interested in Abigail forgiving him than he is in Abigail's well-being.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I definitely agree with that. We cut to Freddie Lounge, who's meeting with a young man. This turns out to be the brother of the young woman that the copycat killer killed, whose names I have totally forgotten, even though I literally just watched this episode like an hour ago. That's how great my brain is working nowadays. I think this dude's name is Nicholas, maybe.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Freddie is doing her best at manipulating Nicholas, basically getting him riled up, and says that Abigail has woken up. So she's trying to like basically poke the bear a little bit here and see what she can kind of shake loose and get a story going.
Mm-hmm. I feel like so much so far of like the terrible things that have happened on this show wouldn't have happened if Freddie wasn't such a terrible person.
It's really weird because I have this love-hate relationship with Freddie Lowndes, because like abusing victims for so a perfect example in the books start out with Will having been attacked by Hannibal Lecter and he's in the hospital. Freddie Lowndes sneaks in and like pulls the sheet back and takes pictures of his like damaged body with like tubes coming out of it and everything, and then publishes them in the Tattler, right? So like that's the level of Freddie that I am used to. And this chick elevates it a bit, but like she's still that person, right? She still will do anything for the story. And yeah, she just manipulates the hell out of this dude. Alana, Hannibal, and Abigail all arrive at her home, which has now been spray painted with the word cannibals all over it. Huge bummer.
Right.
Huge bummer.
Yes.
I never had my house
It's going
rolled.
to take a while to like remove from the house, I guess, right? Like
I never had my house like rolled. I don't know if that's a thing in Canada. I don't know if you know what that is. Where they throw
like with toilet paper rolls?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
And I've never had like my house egged or anything. And every time I see it happening, like every time I drive by a house and I see like the tree in the front yard got rolled, I just get so irrationally angry. I'm like, somebody has to clean that up. And it's not the people who did it, and it makes me so mad.
Yes,
ask me how I'm 40. Let me let you know all of the ways.
I love that. Yep, I feel that.
They walk towards the house and they stop at the bloodstain where her mother died. And Will explains that there's no tape because tape is generally only there for victims that stay alive, which is new to me. Like I've seen a lot of like crime, police procedural stuff, and I did not know that. I did not know that was a thing. So
right, no, I didn't know that either. Frankly, yeah, that was new to me. I was like, oh, do they even do like tape anymore? Like I don't know. I thought that was like from old procedurals,
right,
from before.
Yeah.
But anyway,
same.
Yeah, I was like, that's very X-Files, but I don't know if it's like, a thing that actually happens.
Is this a TV thing or is this a cop thing? Like, I need
there
to
you
ask
go.
the question. Yeah.
But honestly, this scene reminded me actually of going back to my school after the shooting happened and seeing like the places where the bullets had hit, covered up in plywood so that like we wouldn't see the bullet holes in the walls, right? So like closed the school for a couple of days. They patched up the walls with plywood and then we were allowed back in. And it's interesting because like, that there are people who spent time cleaning up and like hiding, right? Like the leftovers of this like really, really traumatic event, but it's still there. And like it's obviously still like within us because we lived it, but it's also still within the walls, or in this case, like on the front porch of this house. And that's really how this moment felt to me. Like, of course, somebody cleaned and tried to make it better, but nothing's ever going to make this better.
I like how this is brought to light too, even further when they go into the house and they get into the kitchen and all the pictures on the refrigerator have been turned around. And it's, Alana, I think, says like, oh, it's the crime scene cleaners that do that. And that's that almost seems like spiritual to me in some, like, or almost like superstitious in some way. Like I'm cleaning the house where these murders happened. I can't have these people looking at me at the same time. And it's just, it's very strange. And like you said, it's not like we're taking away any of those memories. We're literally just covering them up, which you know is a good metaphor for like what you shouldn't do with your emotions after a traumatic experience, right? Like just putting the plywood on top of that stuff is not going to eventually fix you. Like you're going to have to deal with this bullet holes eventually.
Right. Exactly.
Abigail begins to question Will about, do you do this all of the time? Did you try to feel like my dad? He said, what did it feel like to be him? And Will says, like I'm talking to shadows suspended on dust. And she just looks at him and says, "No wonder you have nightmares." And I'm like, "Yes, girl." Finally, someone is
She was so
recognized.
sassy about that.
Yeah. Finally, someone looks at Will and is like, "You need to go home and take a bath and like have a relaxing day. You don't need to be out here with me.
Yeah.
This is bad for you."
You need to be touching grass, my dude.
Yes,
Like-
absolutely. Will asks about the phone call, and she says she doesn't recognize the voice. Cut to Hannibal.
I don't believe her. I'm so sorry, but I do not believe that she doesn't recognize the voice because she glances at
She
him.
looks directly at
like,
Hannibal. Yes,
she does.
It's-
Of course she knows.
Will is of course worried about the copycat, like maybe striking again or endangering Abigail. They go to the living room and begin to unpack boxes, and I don't really know what's going on here besides like I guess Abigail just like reliving some stuff. And Abigail asks if anyone can catch crazy. And Alana brings up I'm going to try this folie à deux. Did I do that?
Yeah.
Excellent. Also known as Joker 2. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know that.
That's the name of the Joker sequel. So yeah, Lady Gaga
Great.
and I can't remember the dude who's playing the Joker is the folie à deux in that.
Is that the same dude who played the first one?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that I love him. But yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's going to be a very, very
Weird,
disturbing movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
While this is happening, Will is beginning to see like a flashes of dead Garrett Jacob Hobbs like whispering to him.
I see you.
I see you.
Ugh.
Hannibal points out that it's not considered delusional if everybody accepts your delusion. Like basically, if it's accepted by one's culture or subculture, which is great. I feel like
It sort of feels like he's like advanced justifying his cannibalism because he's like, well, in my subculture of cannibalism is not bad.
yeah, and I gotta say, like the political situation in 2024 right now, like very much feels like this. Of like, oh, it's not delusional if everybody says you're not delusional. Like that's exactly what I'm living right now. So
Right. Oh my god.
Abigail realizes like they're doing this to look for evidence, and then suggests that they reenact the crime scene. And she looks at Alana and says, "You can be my mom." She looks at Will, "You can be my dad." And she looks at Hannibal very significantly and says, "And you can be the voice on the phone." And it's like, girl, you know.
Of course she knows. Again, the whole like withholding information to gain information. Like it's the gaslighting all over again. Like yeah. Ugh.
It's bad.
The fact that she's trying to do that to Hannibal Lecter though, like ballsy, you know?
Abigail says that they're probably never going to find the bodies because her dad would have honored every part of them. She'd earlier described her dad of like making pipe glue out of elk bones, and she says those girls' bones are probably holding pipes together all over town, which is terrifying. Like that, the idea of that is just so sickening and gross, and also delightful. I don't like true crime shows. Like I feel like I've never really liked true crime because it's like this shit actually happened to a person. I love fake crime. Like this is like my shit. I'm like, oh, this has never happened, so I am A-okay for just enjoying it. And like I think even Hannibal is like, that's a good idea.
It was like, oh, I never thought about that. Interesting.
In the middle of this, her best friend from school shows up. This is another young woman. And they decide to walk outside. And as they're talking, kind of catching up as girls do, the girl is telling Abigail, I didn't talk to the cops. I don't think that you did it. Everybody in the school thinks you did it, and talk to the news crews. They're all whores. When our friend Nicholas shows up and like accuses Abigail of killing his sister or being the bait to capture his sister. And I love her BFF just like starts picking up rocks and throwing them. Exactly the response to an unwanted man. Like, ladies at home, keep a couple of rocks in your pocket. Like,
yeah. I mean, really, like this girl is doing what she can to protect her best friend, and I do love that about her.
Yes. This commotion caused, everyone to come out, including the BFF's mom, who demands that she come home. This young girl calls her mom a bitch and like take a shot. Cut to Hannibal.
Cut to Hannibal again, like, and he doesn't like it, right? That like it's so rude.
Yeah, and you have a moment of
foreshadowing.
Like, is he going to kill this girl? And guess what, everybody, he kills this girl.
Yeah, there you go.
as they look through the woods to try to, any trace of Nicholas, Hannibal finds like a rock with some blood on it and then covers it up. I didn't realize until my second watch through of this that he was going to use that blood as DNA evidence to set up Nicholas, which I think is just like Hannibal operating on a whole different level of serial killer at this point. So,
oh yeah. Well, he's also trying to like cover up a lot of stuff, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
We cut to Will's hotel. Will is a very sweaty sleeper. And then he's dreaming about the stag again. And then he's picturing himself slicing open Abigail's throat. It's very vicious, and very weird. And like, Will, are you okay? Can we help? What do you need?
I mean, the answer to that question is clearly no. But I do have a much more pressing question about this sequence. But the stag, like, does it? Its fur looks like feathers. Is this just bad CGI, or does the stag have feathers?
So I've spent a lot of time in the last week going through every single clip of Hannibal looking for pictures of the stag, because I wanted to include the stag in the video that we were making.
Okay.
And I have to say, the stag changes over time. It's going to have a dramatic change, but I didn't want to include that in the video. But the stag does change over time, and I think that it's definitely like feathered in a way that like a normal stag wouldn't be, and I think that's the show hinting stuff at us. It's trying to show us like, hey, this isn't just a normal stag. Not that you probably thought that when you saw it walk through the hospital earlier, but like, it's definitely something weird is going on with with Will's interpretation of what this stag is.
Hmm. Well, there you go. Like, because at first, okay, all right, I'll take that in. So maybe the featheriness is not like bad CGI. It's actually a thing.
Yep. That's
okay.
Really difficult to talk around this stuff. Yay!
I'm sure that there are listeners who are like, oh my God, he's doing such a great job at this. And I'm like, I have absolutely no clue what's going on.
Now I know exactly how you feel on Carrie and Wayward with Drew, of just being like, yes, I can't tell you about anything that happens in season 15, even though it's directly applicable to this conversation that we were having right now.
He was saying not too long ago something about how Metatron, like, he's like, I don't know if he's a coward or if he did this for the best of the world. And I was like, no, he's a coward.
He's a coward. He's definitely a coward.
He's for sure a coward.
Fuck that guy. The next day, we all go to the hunting cabin. Abigail talks about how clean he kept the place, how she thought that was just because he was meticulous, but now she knows like he was probably covering stuff up. And she begins to realize at some point, as she says again, like he was making every part of the animal, she looks back and says, oh my God, he was feeding them to us. And I put in here, and I don't know that this is a spoiler necessarily. I put in here, she acts surprised, and I see your reaction is in all caps to this, which is great. I love this. Just behind the scene, like our notes are like right next to each other, so like we're basically talking to each other in the notes, and it's very funny to read back when we do these episodes. So I think that she's acting surprised here, because not necessarily for anything that we know later I think right here, like when she woke up and she realized all of this stuff about her father, she realized that he'd killed these girls, and she was obviously remembering killing deer, killing animals with him. I think she is genuinely acting surprised here so she can make herself look more innocent. Like, I think she is cognizant of what Freddie told her, that what she says to people is going to dictate the rest of her life. And so she doesn't want to assume, she wants them to see her realize it, even though she probably realized it like as she was taking all this information and when she woke up in the hospital. So that's why I put Axe in here. I don't know if you get the same vibe. I'm curious what you think about this.
Well, again, like, especially the first time that I watched it, I was like, well, she's still in the process of putting all of this together. Like, this is a really, really big trauma, and so it can take some time to put stuff together, even though like it might seem really obvious. And so it didn't feel to me like she was acting surprised. But now, I don't know. I don't know anymore.
I made you so suspicious of Abigail. I didn't even mean to. She's such a sweet girl. Look how she helped out Sam in Supernatural. She was so nice.
Yes, she was great. But I mean, I don't think it's you that made me really suspicious of Abigail. It's that second rewatch of it.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh my God, because, stuff happens at the end of this episode.
Her second realization is that if he had just killed her, he wouldn't have had to kill all those other girls. And Alana immediately steps in. It's like, we absolutely do not know that. Like, you cannot blame yourself for the actions of your father. Again, Alana, the only one in the room who gives a shit about Abigail's state of mind. But this is all interrupted because a drop of blood falls on her. And as everybody rushes upstairs, we see Abigail's friend from earlier, this time mounted on the antlers, just like the copycat killer did with Nicholas's sister. And this is horrifying, of course.
Yeah.
And then this turns into a crime scene. Jack arrives. He does a real rude brush by of Abigail, who is like being comforted by Alana outside. He just like gives her a real shitty look and then walks in. And I'm like, Jack, can you at least like pretend just for like she's like, presumably this is a teenage girl in high school. Like, I mean, why are you so shitty to the high schooler?
And I mean, especially for Abigail, like, it's trauma on trauma on trauma. Like, again, assuming that she's really innocent about this, like, you know, found out, like, saw her dad kill her mom, was almost killed by her dad, then found out that her dad was a serial killer, then found out that her dad was feeding her, like, people. And now she finds out that, like, her best friend is, like, dead, right? And it's just, what an awful place to be for this girl.
I think, too, pretending that I don't know anything about the rest of the series,
right?
If I put myself in the mind state of Abigail, even let's assume that the worst Jack Crawford thinks about her is true, that's still a really fucked up thing to live through. Like, your father, like, kind of basically brainwashing you into do this and normalizing this kind of activity, would still make you have these, you know, wild emotional reactions after you get out of that situation. Like, there's no good way to go with Abigail here. Like, she's definitely going to be someone who has to work through a lot of stuff in her life. Will is upstairs, definitely looking at the body. There's some DNA on the teeth. He says that it's the copycat's victim, and that he believes that it's the boy that confronted Abigail Nicholas. Jack is really angry here, and it's frustrating to me that Jack is angry at Will, because he says, you know, you told me this killer would never kill again. You told me that this killer would never do anything like this. What else are you wrong about? And I'm like, he didn't even want this job, Jack. Like, I
mean, Jack, isn't it your job to investigate shit also? Like, where were you while Will was doing all this work?
Yeah, like, is he your only behavior guy? Like, you should have more behavior. You should, like...
You should definitely have more behavior guys.
Definitely have more behavior guys. Like, Mary has a fish guy. Jack needs a lot more behavior guys. Like, we got to get this done.
You have a great dirt guy, so, you know. Well, or a better dirt guy, but anyway. I just think that what's really upsetting about this is that, like, Will wasn't wrong, right? But it's Hannibal that's like, well, anyway, I think it's Hannibal that's, like, creating all kinds of chaos around him to make it seem like he was wrong.
Yes. And, you know, the DNA evidence is, like, obviously planted. Like, we saw Hannibal, like, do that. And, like, Hannibal is basically saying, like, Nicholas killed this girl and his own sister, right? Like, he's, you know, obviously emotionally disturbed. And like,
he's like, let's try to, like, dissociate myself from all of this.
I know I joked earlier about, like, we haven't actually seen Hannibal do anything, but, like, that dude smiled when Will said that his killing was art, right? Like, there's no way that he didn't kill that girl in the field.
No, of course.
And
allegedly.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, allegedly, but also, like, that smile. A smile is admissible
allegedly,
in court.
but also really.
And I just think that, like, just Hannibal, like, just using everything around him to you know, cover things up, to what's the word that I'm looking for, to, like, basically just confuse things in general, like that. Acting as this agent of chaos is, you know, that's what he's doing.
To murk up the water,
that's
I guess,
what I was looking for,
is the image that's coming up for me. Or to blend the vegetables in the soup, right? Like, that's what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great reference back to potage. And Hannibal and Will are both insistent that Abigail isn't a killer, but they're definitely worried that she could be a target of one. And I think I just read your notes instead of my own, so that's a danger.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. But it felt like a threat to me, right? Like, he's going to kill her, right? Like, she could be the target of one. Like, who is a killer? Like Hannibal. So yeah.
because she could.
It's like, if she doesn't behave the way that I would like her to, then I'm going to eat her.
Yeah, like based on what we've seen, like he's got to be thinking that Abigail knows it's him that was on the phone.
Yeah.
So like that's a direct threat to his well-being, and he's not going to let that go. Jack orders Hannibal to get Abigail out of there, but he wants Will to stay and work the crime scene. He's still very mad. This feels very like vindictive to Will for me. Hannibal drives her back to her house. There's protesters outside. They've got the whole place cordoned off. Somehow Freddie Lounds has snuck in again. She makes a real weird comment to Hannibal of like, I'm not the only one peeping through the windows. He asked her directly about Nicholas, and she tries to use it for gain. It says like, tell me why you want to know, and I'll tell you if I've seen him. And Hannibal just like turns around and leaves. He's like, I'm not dealing with you today, Freddie Lounds. So I've got other shit I got to do. I've got a daughter to gaslight. I need to get out of here.
Got a daughter and a boyfriend, a potential boyfriend to gaslight. I have to make this man love me. And so I think before that is where the mother of the BFF shows up, accusing Abigail of killing her daughter, right? And I just found that in that moment, like the horror of the unsaid in this show, or like the double speak, or like the two stories that are happening, is just so present in that moment, because the mother is screaming and crying about her daughter being murdered in the arms of the man who killed her daughter.
Right. Awful.
Oh my God.
Awful.
Yes.
Awful.
But that's why I'm saying, like, I can handle like the gruesome stuff, but like this is a lot. TM.
And again, I am sorry for everything that's going to come.
No. Oh my God.
Hannibal and Alana are talking to the police outside. Meanwhile, Abigail is very upset at going through, seeing her best friend die, being accused of their best friend's murder. She's crying. She's hugging this pillow. And as she realizes, like, again, that phrase, like, we're going to honor every part of her, she grabs a knife on the table. That knife is in an evidence box, so it's like a big hunting knife, obviously. And she cuts open the pillow, and inside the pillow is human hair. And again, we haven't talked about the awfulness of like secretly feeding somebody human flesh, which is awful.
Yes. And
this is like almost, it's not quite the same level, but it's also like the pillows that we have in our house have like human remains in them. Like that's so awful and so bad. It's just so gross.
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, I know that Abigail is thinking about her dad as a loving person, but really when you step back for a second, like, I don't believe it, right? So whether it's a story that she has to tell herself in order to like make sense of what happened, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that she was just lying about it, or just like, again, like keeping in mind that Abigail manipulates people. Like that's maybe something that she's doing in that moment. I don't quite know.
And there's also, again, putting my I've never seen this show before hat on.
Right.
We can think that it's like Jack Crawford's side, which is she was an active participant in these killings, or we can think that she's completely innocent. But there's also a middle ground of like, maybe she was helping, but she didn't realize quite the extent of what her father was doing. Right. Like, and there's, so like some of this could be a very real and awful, wretched reaction to realizing what she had a hand in. And some of it could just be like, oh crap, I've got to pretend in front of these cops so they don't arrest me. And I find that's what's fascinating about this character is like, you can go a lot of different ways with it.
And so here's the thing in this particular moment, right? Because I can totally see the argument that she's faking it, or like that she's exaggerating her reactions, or, like I can see all of it. I can also see that the reactions are genuine. So like I see the full spectrum of it. But in this moment, she's really alone in the house. And she's really crying and she's very distraught. And I don't know that she would be doing that if she wasn't genuinely upset. And that's why, like if it was a show to somebody else, like there was nobody to witness this show. So like it felt genuine to me. Like I'm trying to hang on to hope that she's not a terrible person. But yeah, again, projecting my own stuff and hoping that she doesn't turn out to be a serial killer.
Unfortunately,
we don't know yet.
Unfortunately, everybody is a terrible person in this show.
Yeah, well,
very few exceptions.
My
girl Beverly, I think, is probably the best character in that. And as far as like, as far as like people who don't do anything bad, is probably the only one that wins.
Very cool.
Anyway. They go to, I don't know why I'm talking about Beverly. I'm so sorry. I'm just rambling.
No, it's fine. I'm like, I'm excited to meet Beverly then.
Well, we met her. She was the one that called kind of messed with Will at the shooting range and at the crime scene. Yeah. So
yeah. I like her. She's funny.
Nicholas shows up as she is realizing that she's holding. Abigail realizes she's holding a handful of human hair, and he says he's not. He says like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to kill you. I didn't kill my sister. And it's like this weird, like, I'm not here to hurt you, but like she runs away. He grabs her and slams her against a wall. And she's still holding the knife, and she like instinctively hits him in the gut. And then like, it looks like she pulls the knife up and like literally guts the dude.
Right.
He falls down, and then she starts like freaking out. We switch over to Hannibal, who is walking in and sees like what happened, and very quickly rushes up to Alana, knocks her head against the wall, and like grabs her on the way down, and like, you know, sets her down gently and makes sure she's okay. And then we realized, like, I feel like this is the first time we've seen Hannibal do something like this, like physically do something. Like, instead this whole time it's been like, oh, cooking, like I'm cooking some lungs, but like, whose lungs are they? We don't know. Could be a goat's lung, whatever. This is the first time we've seen him do something violent, and it's the casual nature of this, like the quickness and the practicality, makes it all the worse for me, right? Like just the idea that he can do this so quickly to somebody that you thought he was, you know, if not friends, then colleagues with.
Mm-hmm. I think you used a word that I'm gravitating towards, which is like casual. This felt so casual, but yeah, it just feels like it feels like a business thing. Like, oh, let me just do this thing. Let me just like turn off the water. Like it really feels like a means to an end, which again, like we're talking about manipulation a lot in this episode. And this is a form of like, in this case, physical manipulation. Like
it's so bad.
So weird.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Is it too late to change our theme song to Is It Casual Now by Chapel Roan? Is it too can we do that? Jake, we have a new project.
Jake! It's an interesting one. That's going to be, actually, that would be a lot of fun to change the lyrics to, because there's some really fun ones in there with the dinner table and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be that thing. I've done it several times now where like we pick a song for Monster of the Week or whatever, and then I've realized like I'm not changing any of the lyrics because I feel like they just fit already. So Autumn's like, you have to make it funny or sad. You can't just leave the same lyrics in. And I'm like, okay, I'll change them. I promise.
Thank you, Autumn, for like helping you being able to make all of these masterpieces. So thank you, Autumn. We appreciate you.
We've talked about manipulation and gaslighting this episode, and here it's at its worst. Hannibal rushes over and immediately tells Abigail this was not self-defense, and says, you butchered him. If people find out about this, you'll be accused of helping your father. Which is she's in shock. Like, regardless of what we believe her mindset to be, or like what she has done in the past or helped her father or not, like she's seen her best friend impaled on antlers. She's been accused of that murder by her best friend's mother. She's come in here, she's been attacked, she's slaughtered this boy, and she's just in shock. And so Hannibal saying this is like she's shaking and just looking at him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a lot because this is where I think Alana's point from earlier comes in about like the fact that she could start reenacting elements of the trauma without realizing it. And the fact that she cuts open Nicholas the same way that she cut open the dough is like so telling to me. Like, obviously now I'm a little less sure about my understanding of this moment, but I think like this really made me think of like the ways in which we will do things that our parents used to do without realizing that that's what they used to do. And then like one of your siblings is going to be like, oh my God, dad does the same thing. And it's like, oh, fuck. Like,
I didn't mean to do that at all. Absolutely. Exactly. Didn't mean to be imitating this dude. It just came naturally. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there you go. And so like, it's obviously at smaller scales, like for most other people, but in this case, it's like, it has to do with murder and killing people. So obviously like it's much more dramatic.
He gives her a choice and basically says she can either confess and everything, and deal with everything that comes with that, or they can hide the body together. I find this fascinating. One from just like Hannibal is absolutely confident that he can hide a body when there's like a full police complement outside. Like he has no stress about this whatsoever, right? Like he's like, I can definitely do this, not even a question.
Mm-hmm. And again, Abigail in her state of shock doesn't question that.
No, not at all. Right? Not at all. And we cut to a little while later while they're doctoring Alana in the ambulance, who does not remember anything. She just remembers like a rushing figure and then straight to black. Jack Crawford is now totally on board that this is Nicholas. It says that he got away, but they'll catch him. There's some evidence here where they say that like Abigail had some of his DNA under her fingernails as she tried to catch him or something. So again, like that Hannibal subtly manipulating, like they obviously like planted this evidence on Abigail to make their story work. Again with the manipulation.
Well, I mean, her whole hands were covered in blood, so somehow they had to make sure, like, you know, there had to be an explanation for it as well, right?
Why has Hannibal got the carpet cleaner out? Like, what is Hannibal doing in there?
But there you go. Also, like, I was like, oh my god! But all of the blood stains on the carpets. Yeah. Like, what did he do?
What are we doing with that? What are we doing? Or just stuff? Or just put a pile of pillows on top? I guess where nobody's going back into the thing
with human hair,
right?
Like,
so gross. Will just, I love this because Will's just like, I gotta go. I'm going home. Like, I'm done.
It's like that's me all the time. Like,
right?
That's very relatable. I'm like, I just always want to be home. So I get that.
Like on the scale of places to be, home is probably like going to always be at a 10 for me. And like everything else is going to be below 10.
Exactly.
We skip ahead a little bit, and it's nighttime. Hannibal is writing in his office and he senses Abigail coming in. He says, you know, oh, they called me, and you jumped the fence. And he's basically expecting her. And she says, you know, I didn't want to go to sleep. She doesn't want to have nightmares. And she's worried because they didn't honor any part of him, referring to Nicholas. She's obviously, like, now that she's got some distance from it, very disturbed at their activities. Yeah.
And it's also that she's like going, like, again, she is doing the same thing that her father was doing, right? Because like the whole honoring every part was supposed to be about animals, right? That you're killing, which is like something that human beings have been doing for millennia at this point. But the fact that she now knows that her dad was also applying this logic to people, she is now applying this logic to people. And it's like, it's so chilling because she is, whether she was before or not, now she's literally following in the footsteps of her dad. And I'm just like, oh no, don't do that.
Don't do it, girl. Don't do it.
Exactly.
It's hard to watch. She tells, really. It's really difficult to watch.
It's hard to watch. I think that was the part that like really got me. It's that the fact that despite everything, even if she hadn't participated in this before, she is now in it. Because of her father, because of Hannibal, because of older men around her who have manipulated her into these things. And I'm just like, oh, this is really hard.
It's like I said, it's just difficult to watch because it's so. Abigail is a young girl, and I think anytime on these TV shows, the instinct that people have is to protect, you know, these young women who have been in bad situations. And Hannibal is doing like the exact opposite of that, which is like pretending to be the protector while still forcing her to like rely on him. Like it's classic predator behavior, and it's awful to see it done so well on television, right? Like, even though this is all fake, like he's not actually like, you know, I'm sure her and him have a great relationship and they're super happy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
of course,
but it's still just, it makes the skin crawl. Especially when there's a back and forth when she realizes like, oh, you're the person that called my dad. And you know, she says something to the extent of like, you know, you're just like my dad. And he looks at her and there's this, with absolute coldness, it says, I'm nothing like your dad.
I know.
And I think that Abigail interprets that a different way than anybody else that knows the story of Hannibal. I think Abigail is like, I think she's saying it like, oh, I don't just kill these girls, but Hannibal's saying it like, I am so much more involved than your father. Like, I'm so much worse.
I make this into art. That's what my future boyfriend said. And she also says like, you're glad I killed him, which is kind of making me feel like Abigail is also like hypersensitive to people's like reactions. Like, she's able to tell how they're feeling. And again, I think that could be a sign of trauma because, again, like, in order to survive, sometimes like you have to be aware of how everybody feels in order to like navigate all of that. And she's able to tell that Hannibal is glad that she killed this boy. She can't really make out why, which I think it's because, well, now I have one over on her, right? Like she's not going to tell about me calling because I covered up her murder, right?
Yeah.
But like she doesn't quite know what to make of this.
And it's worse too, because like as she comes to this realization of like they're protecting each other, like she says, "I'll keep your secret," or he says, "I will keep your secret," and she says, "I will keep yours." And the lack of understanding that she is not anywhere near on Hannibal's level at this point is just, it's so awful to watch. Like it's so heartbreaking. Like your heart just goes out to Abigail so much because you're like, oh, this dude does not need to have an interest in this young girl. And like you said, like it's because of all of this trauma that he's interested in her. It's because of all Will's empathic ability and almost the disability of having to retain his feelings about these people that he can be empathic with. That's what interests Hannibal and Will. And now it's something not similar, but it's something like there's a different angle with Abigail, but it's something that interested him. Like he's interested in these damaged people and what he can do to them and how he can control them. And it's very much control. I think that's like something we're going to learn over the next few episodes. It's like, it's absolutely about control. So.
I mean, it makes sense. Look at the way his office is organized. Like, look at the way his desk is. Look at the way he dresses. Look at his cars. Like, it all makes sense. And I think that there's a part of me that kind of wonders, if Hannibal isn't also taking Abigail under his wing in any way, shape, or form, because he's sort of seeing the potential that she has as a killer, because like recognizes like she sees the serial killer in him and he sees the potential serial killer in her. Like I'm wondering if there isn't like a little bit of that in there too.
Yeah. And just coming from like the lore of the books, like Hannibal is super interested in serial killers in general. So like, it's not really a spoiler for anybody that's seen like Silence of the Lambs, right? Like that's kind of one of the whole premises of the movie. And it's going to be really interesting to watch how he interacts with Abigail over the course of the season, and what he does to mess with her, I guess. That's all I will say about it. Yeah. Hey, Mary, have I apologized to you about this? About bringing you into this? Have I done that this episode? Have I said I'm sorry?
Oh, no. Yeah, well, like I said, Rochelle told me that I would find it difficult to see Abigail's storyline. So, man.
This is a rough one to watch. I think it's very interesting because, again, as somebody who had read the Hannibal books and watched the movies, coming into this as it was airing live on TV, and like this being such a dramatic turn and just like making the character even more evil than I could possibly imagine. I was like, oh, this show is going to put us in for it. Like I am in danger. This is what is happening right now. Yes. I am in danger.
Yeah. It's like, oh no, I can see where this is going and I don't like it.
Do not like it. You have any last thoughts before we go to our review section?
No, I was going to ask you actually about how you liked this episode or not.
Yeah, I think it's a really great episode of television, right? It's very hard to watch in places, but I think in terms of a episode of Hannibal that I'm enjoying, then I absolutely love it. Like I said, I don't really dig on true crime stuff, but like fake crime, fake serial killers, I'm all about. Like all of this stuff is like catnip for me. Like I love this weird manipulation stuff. I love Hannibal doing all of these weird killings just to confuse and cause chaos. Will doing his best to try to keep up, and then Jack caught in the middle. All of this stuff is super good to me. I love it so much.
I especially like the power play that's currently happening, that Hannibal is trying to like set up. Ooh, very creepy, very lovely.
So when you say power play, you mean between him and Will, or between Will and Jack, or all of the above?
All of the above, especially the one with Abigail as well.
Yes.
With Alana, with Freddie Lowndes, with everybody, really.
Yeah. And let's be like imagine meeting a guy like Hannibal, and like just becoming like casual social friends, and then like realizing like, oh, I just never did anything weird around that guy, so he just happened to not kill me. Like it's got to be so super weird.
So weird. So weird.
Well, let's move into the review section.
So I am going to give this episode 4 stars because with its intriguing flavors and chilling aftertaste, the smooth and striking potage leaves you wondering if there weren't any undisclosed ingredients.
I am also going to give this episode 4 stars. The potage was tasty and had hidden flavors that over time revealed themselves, as if the ingredients wanted to hide something from us at the beginning.
Ooh. Oh no. Oh no.
With that, we have reached the end of Rude Eats episode 3. I'd like to thank our music guy,
our music guy,
our box guy, Jake Lionheart, for creating an incredible theme for us. I'd like to thank Alex Dreams Art for creating our incredible cover art. I also like to thank Katie for helping us out on titling some of that stuff for us. We really appreciate that. At this point, we still haven't launched the podcast, which is really strange. But thank you for everybody who's been leaving reviews, hopefully positive ones. Thank you for
please leave reviews.
Yes, thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk about this with your friends on social media and sharing links around. That's very appreciative. We are very appreciative for people for doing that. We are a independent podcast. We're not going to ever have ads. All we ask is that you spread the show around and chat with us.
There you go. Yeah.
I would tell you the Gmail, but our Gmail is currently suspended, so we're working that out right now.
Yeah, let's hold on to that for a sec.
In the meantime, Mary, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at MaryTurner_. And they can also... Actually, no, that's really where I am. If you want to talk to me, go on Twitter, unfortunately. Yeah. What about you, Jeremy?
I am at JG Greer on Twitter. You can go to creepybutnecessary.cool to find my other podcast. And you should also go to carryingwayward.com to find Mary's other podcast. And we will be back in a couple of weeks with more Hannibal. Bon appetit.
Bon appetit. Oh my god. All I want is to go watch the next episode.
Yes. I'll be curious how this one... I don't think this one's going to be as emotionally... I don't know. I don't know. I don't know you well enough.
You don't know anymore. You're I don't know.
I don't know you obviously well enough. Like, this is the first time we've really talked in this depth. So I don't know what's going to affect you on this. The Abigail stuff is going to be interesting, though. So I'm excited about it.
Well, so that's the thing. Like, I know... So from, like, osmosis or cultural osmosis, as Drew calls it, I knew that, like, Will and Hannibal were kind of going to become like dads to, or surrogate dads to somebody. I didn't think that it would be so early on, and I didn't think that it would be Abigail. But I guess that's kind of what's about to happen, unless there's somebody else that they become surrogate dads to later on, which would be a weird nickel to have twice.
Yes,
but anyway.
Yes, it would be weird. No, you can pretty much stick with Abigail for season 1, I think. There's going to be
season 1. Oh no.
There's things change. Things evolve over time. You never know what's going to happen in season 2. I didn't go through season 2 because I didn't want to pull like spoilery clips from season 2 to put in the video. Although I did cheat and put 2 in there, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm excited to go through season 2 and see all of the new stuff that I've forgotten that's happened in this show. So this was fun. This was super fun again.
This was again super fun. I completely forgot about doing a theme actually, but I feel like we kind of hammered it home with the whole like not knowing what's going on. And the gaslighting and the manipulation
and cutting to Hannibal. Those are the important things.
And of course, I think that was the theme. Cut to Hannibal.
Cut to Hannibal.
He's just there, like staring at Will.
There was so much. The first pass I did with the video, Judy, who's my video editing guru, was like, a lot of these shots are just Hannibal being still, and I'm like, yeah, it's great. It's so good.
Yes, and
she was like, I think
what's your point?
I think you want the video to be like more active, to have more motion, and I'm like, you're not wrong, but also just look at him. Like, it's intense. It's an intense vibe.
And he's also like, and he's also such a like specific person to look at, like his facial features are fascinating in so many ways.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a movie with him where he just gets he's completely silent through it.
Oh wow!
I think this is him. Hopefully, I'm not thinking of a different guy. That would be embarrassing. But he like gets dropped into like a mythical like place and has to just kill a bunch of people, like fight them.
Right. Okay.
And it is like, he does such an amazing job without saying a single word.
Oh
it's
my
just,
God.
It's just so
I'm
cool.
sure.
I'm just now.
I mean, he's an actor, like an actor.
Oh
like,
yeah,
he's
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So weird that he was like in Hannibal, and also, Doctor Strange. It's very, very weird. Maybe it wasn't him.
Was he Doctor Strange? No, that was Benedict Cumberbatch.
He was the villain in the movie. In the first one.
Yes, that is correct. Oh my God. He was in an interview at some point with another actor where it was like a press junket of some sort for a movie, and the other actor reads a thing where he's like, how do you feel about your co-star having been in Rihanna's music video Bitch Better Have My Money? And he goes, oh my God, no way, you were in that? And he goes, and Mads just goes, yes. And he smiles and he goes, I was the bitch. And I was just like, I don't think I've ever been so enamored with another human being before. I was the bitch. I love him.
Yeah, I was right. It was Valhalla Rising. Is the name of the movie. I'll send you a screenshot of the cover. But it's just him literally like going through this mythological like heaven kind of thing, and he is just. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't say a word throughout the whole thing, and it's just thrilling. Wow. It's just amazing. So anyway, I'll stop babbling. I know you have other chores to do.
I do.
Enjoy episode 4. Please DM me all of your thoughts as they are happening. I love to see it.
I probably will actually do that right away, because I can get like I can get 20 minutes of the episode in before I got to go get my son. All right, I'm gonna let you go, and I will talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. I love how that's like our measure of rude. Would Hannibal eat him? Like, is he that rude?
Is he rude enough to be eaten? Is the question we have to ask at every episode.
I feel like that's the title of the episode right there.
Right? We got it in one. We got it in the first 2 seconds.
I know, so good, so efficient. Like, it's not even 1:00 yet, and we're already.
Yeah, we didn't even say we're going to record this early, and we've already got the title down.
I know. Oh my God, it's so good. But it's true, and there's so many moments in this episode actually where I'm like, he's going to eat this person.
Right? Like, you can definitely tell. Like, I know when I suggested Rude Eats, it was like what does that actually mean? Because we'd only seen like one episode. But like, as you get into it, you're like, oh, okay, now I see. He just wants to literally eat the rude of everybody.
Eat the rude. Forget eat the rich. It's eat the rude.
Hey, let's do both. Why not both?
I mean, I'm down. Like, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So
do you want to hear about my trip to France?
Yes, absolutely. Tell me everything that you've got coming.
Beautiful. It was great. I feel like I need to like get this out in the open, but no, I did not see the horse. Because that's the question that everybody is asking. I didn't see the horse.
This episode that will come out in like
either.
September of 2024. We need to tell everybody.
Yes. I know. Well, it's because I realized that I tweeted about this, but I haven't explained the situation to a lot of people. And I remember that like I explained it a little bit in the outtakes of like the last episode. So I'm like, okay, well, I feel now that I have to follow up, right? Like, first of all, I'm still alive, so that's good. There was no murder-suicide involved, which is always great. Love those trips. But there was a horse that terrified me because I thought it was the horse. So that was good. We went camping, got eaten alive by mosquitoes, which I didn't think was really possible considering that I'm from Quebec and there's like so many mosquitoes everywhere. We're like pretty used to them, pretty immune, but like this was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. There were so many mosquitoes there.
Yeah, I live in mosquito capital of the world, so it's Autumn especially. She has relatively fair skin, and I guess the sweetest blood alive. I don't know. I've never tasted her blood, but like mosquitoes, swarm her. Like they just like it is bad. So whenever we go like do anything outside, she's like the long sleeve shirt and the like collar.
Yeah. It's apparently got to do with how much CO2 your body expels, like through your skin. That's what they're attracted to.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Because we researched to see if there was anything we could possibly do to make it better. We were like, do we shower? Do we not shower? Like, what's the deal here?
What will make them go away as fast as possible is the goal.
Exactly. Or what will make them not swarm us? Because, other people were complaining, but we got swarmed. I guess we were fresh meat on this campsite. Like,
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Another rude eats thing.
Just eaten by mosquitoes. The worst
eaten
death.
by mosquitoes. Seriously. But yeah, no, it was great. I ate a lot of really good food and saw my sister, saw her new house, her new old house. And yeah, I don't know, a lot of fun. Hung out with my brothers too, so that was cool.
So does all of your family live in France?
Except for my mom, yes. And my son.
Oh, yeah. I figured that your son still was local.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't leave him over there?
No.
Just leave him in France? This is your child now.
Yes, exactly. It's like, well, you have a home now. Take him.
Yes, absolutely. I have a nephew, so I don't have any children. So it's like, oh, here's a child, and you can have him back. Like that's my relationship with children. I was at a funeral and I met my first cousin's daughter, which I guess is like my second cousin. I don't know how that works. But she was very young and very vivacious and very very charming. And that was my first experience like hanging out with a kid in a very long time. And I was just like, yep, I'm exhausted. This was exactly the amount of child that I need in my life. Now I need to move on to do other things.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I always say that I'm a one-hit wonder in the sense that, like, I don't really foresee myself having other children just because, like, one is enough. Like, I love him very, very much, and I'm so happy that he's in my life. But, like, this is enough for me. I'm good. I know my limits.
What So I've never been to France. I've been to the airport in Paris like twice.
Cool.
But not.
I mean,
like,
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, it's actually like it's a pretty cool place. Like the croissants there are amazing. Like I was just so happy. Like,
that was just the airport.
Yeah, it was just the airport. We were like, wow, this is like the best thing that we've ever had in an airport before. But I've never actually like traveled in France or anything like that. Like the food, I have to imagine is just outstanding, right? Like it just has to be like on a different level.
I mean, yes, but like. I also kind of like fight back against this idea that like French food is like absolutely out of this world just because like food can be delicious anywhere you go. And there's a lot of French stuff that I think people wouldn't necessarily love as much as like the locals do just because they're like they didn't grow up with it. Like, for example, I know of a lot of like very local things that I absolutely love, but then other people taste them and they're like, well, this is just like whatever, right? Like there's this half brioche, half cake, half bread. So like maybe a third of each thing called fouasse. And it's really from a very specific region of France. And when people taste it, they're like, no, this is like dry cake. And I'm like, no, but you don't understand.
You don't understand. You don't get
this
it.
This is delicious. Exactly. And also, I had a conversation with somebody who was American, and they said that when they went to Paris, they were really disappointed with the food because they felt like it was a little, like it didn't taste as much as like American food. And this was when I was in Supernatural, New Jersey, and I was like, well, having eaten in a couple of like American restaurants in the past few days, I can tell you that I'm really not used to the amount of salt that is in the food
I was
here.
actually going to ask that because like we just bomb salt on every dish. Like it's just and also put like just drizzled sauces on top of everything. Like it's ridiculous. Yeah. Being from South Louisiana, we have a really hyper localized like food setup. So there's like, very, very angry people that argue about like, food from the Creole side or from the, the Cajun side or the area I live in, which is the, wow, I just blanked on that word. Acadiana side, sorry.
Yes.
So, and it's funny to hear that because we definitely have dishes down here that will definitely scare people off until they try them. Like you really have to approach it with an open mind. I brought my friend Gary down, and I picked him up from the airport, and we went to basically a gas station that is known for having delicious food. But it's like it's not a gas station, but it was like in a old gas station building, and you walk in and it's just like a clear glass case full of like fried food that's totally unhealthy for you, and like a small grocery on the side, and I could just see his eyes get like, I can't do any of this. And I was like, hey, go sit outside. I'm going to go buy us a bunch of stuff and just not tell you what it is. And then I'm going to feed you. And then you can tell me what you like, and then I'll tell you what it is afterwards. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like so actually, I do want to tell this story. We went to a restaurant that is in an area that like my dad's family kind of lived for a very, very, very long time. And this is a restaurant that they say like has been open for 5 generations, right? So like 5 generations of the same family have held this restaurant. And it turns out that with my son going there this summer, it's also the 5th generation of our family eating at this restaurant.
That's incredible.
Yeah, like, and so obviously I told my grandpa that we went there, and like he was like, oh yeah, because he was an insurance something, I can't remember exactly what he was, but he would basically like look at damages on farms and be like, this is going to cost this much to repair, right? That was his job. And so whenever he was on the road, he would always organize his schedule, or he said, I would always have my secretary organize my schedule so that I could stop there for lunch.
I love it.
And I was like, oh my God, what a different time.
I travel for work, so I'm, in a typical day, I could go, a couple of hours on a vehicle or 6 hours on a vehicle or whatever. And I go to a lot of like rural Louisiana places, and there's definitely like spots where I'll be like, oh, I'm going to, Kaplan today, and they got a delicious cheeseburger, so I'm going to do like this place in the morning, so I can hit Kaplan at 11 and be done by 12 and pick up the burger, and like I always do that kind of stuff. So I would imagine any kind of like traveling work people would do that, like insurance or salesman or whatever it is. Like people learn the spots, the cool spots.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, it makes sense, right? That you would do that. And so at this restaurant, what we ate that day, because they have like 2 options on the menu, and the dish that most of us picked was beef cheek. Basically, it was cheek of beef, essentially, in red wine sauce, and it was truly one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life.
Oh, that's so good.
And it's never something that I would have ordered, right? Because I'm like, beef cheek, oh my God, like, no, ew. But when it's either that or like the tripou, which is like tripe, like like insides, right? Like you would know, actually, right? I was like, no, I'm not eating that, but I will have the beef cheek. And frankly, it was delicious. And my son commented that the potatoes must have been sent from heaven.
I love it.
My dad loved that.
We had when we were in Italy, we had a dish that the chef described, or that the waiter translated for us, and said that this was like basically carrot 3 ways. Okay. And I'm kind of a snob when it comes to like we watch Top Chef a whole lot, like we're addicted to that show. And so like whenever there's like a dish that's like such and such 3 ways, Tom Colicchio, the host, is like, psh, are we doing this again? And so like the waiter, like the chef, we were doing like a chef's table thing, so we had no idea what the next dish we were getting. So they bring it over and they're like, it's carrot 3 ways, and Autumn and I like locked eyes, and then like tasted it, and it was literally the best thing I've ever put in my mouth ever. Like we were like, I was almost licking the plate. It was so good. I was like, how do you do this with carrots? This is incredible. So yeah.
I mean, I feel like those are the best culinary experiences where you're like, this was amazing. And it's a dish that like you could theoretically make at home, but you could never make at home because you don't have the skills,
That's the stuff that like, it's really difficult because Autumn loves to cook. And she's gotten very good at it. And I'm not like, I just don't let her go in the kitchen and I'm like playing video games or anything. Like we cook together and like, turn on music and have fun or whatever. But like I am in no way or shape or form close to her culinary ability. So it's kind of ruined me for stuff. Like I'll go out and like all of my guys, like with customers, they're like, oh, we're going to get a steak. And I'm like, these guys' steaks are not as good as Autumn's at home. Like, I don't know. So like going out is definitely stuff like really difficult dishes to master. Like a beef cheek in red sauce would be like a perfect example of something that I would order because it's not something I would ever normally eat or wouldn't normally have at the house. So
yeah. It's interesting because I have started feeling that way because I was never a really great cook. Like I cooked more for like, because I had to feed myself and my son, but it was never like something that I really loved. But then COVID hit and I couldn't go to restaurants anymore. And I was like, this sucks. So that's when my cooking skills kind of leveled up. And now I'm really disappointed when I go out because I'm like, I could make this better at home.
Right?
And like, it's bad. Like,
why are you charging me $30 for this? Like I could have just I could have just stayed home. I didn't even have to be social.
Exactly.
We were very much like that before COVID. Autumn would go ride her horse at her barn. It was before we had the horses at the house. And then she'd call me up and like, I'm leaving, come meet me at such and such. So we would go and like hang out at the bar and have a couple of drinks and have food. And it was like an experience and all that kind of stuff. And then COVID hit and was like, no, we got to stay home now. So we bought a grill, we bought a pizza oven, we bought a smoker. Like we just started buying all of the outdoor kitchen equipment that we could possibly get our hands on. So now it's especially bad because like if we pick a restaurant to go to, it has to be like a restaurant of like there's a new dumpling place in town that we're dying to try because it's really difficult to do like 18 different types of dumplings at home, right? So like you go to the dumpling place for that experience, and we're excited to try it.
Oh, that's fun. That is exactly the kind of place that you should go. Like, because it's, like you said, making 18 different kinds of dumplings is just not fun.
And you could do it. Like, we've made dumplings before, but it's relatively challenging. It takes a lot of work. And then, but like, you're not making like a bunch of different kinds. And you go to the restaurant and you're like, oh, give me 8 dishes on the table at once, please. So I want to sample everything from this. There
you go. So we do sushi at home now quite well. Yeah, I learned to make the rice, and honestly from there it just kind of snowballed. My son really loves the rolled like sushi. I prefer the bowls just because it's easier and it's less fussy. But yeah, we've gotten pretty good at making those.
So do you have like a really good fish source? Because I've always been like, even though I live in like on the Gulf of Mexico, it's relatively challenging to get like good fresh fish in the area that I'm in. I can sometimes find it, and I can find like local distributors, but a lot of it gets frozen on the way to the grocery stores. So I've never even thought about trying anything like that for sushi.
So we have not too far from my house, there's like a fish. Oh my God, how do you say this in English? A fishmonger? Like a fish person?
Yeah, fishmonger is good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Like somebody who sells fish. And he like, whenever I need something sushi quality, I tell him, and he's like, okay, so pick this and this, but not this.
Oh, okay. So you got a fish guy is what I'm hearing.
I got a fish guy, man.
Guy.
Like he's
absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah.
That's the
fish
most
and oyster guy.
That's the most important thing in life, is having a collection of guys at your disposal. Like having a fish guy is good. I've got a sword guy. He always comes through for me.
Very cool.
I've got a dirt
That's
guy.
Not what I was expecting.
I had to get rid of my old dirt guy because even though he was a great dirt guy, every time we would like have a casual conversation, he would just drop the N-word.
No.
Yeah. And I live around a bunch of racist people. Like I acknowledge it. Like it's
right.
It's the area that I live in. But at the same time, like I don't necessarily want to hear it. And like there's no black people around. Like why are you talking about this with like this way around me? So yeah, now I have a new dirt guy. So far he has not been racist around me. So
I mean, I feel like that's already a better dirt guy than the other dirt guy.
But yeah, having the collection of guys is super important. So I wish I had a fish guy.
Actually, I am looking to add a flour guy to my life right now because I'm looking for stone milled flour. Anyway, I'm looking for stone milled flour, right?
Because it makes
bread.
It makes better bread. Yeah, absolutely.
It makes better bread because it's not the way that we mill grain today is actually with 2 cylinders, and it mills the grain. But the thing is, like during that process, it heats up the grain, and then you lose a lot of nutrients through that process. But on the stone, the way that it's actually milled, like you don't lose those nutrients because the heat, like the temperature doesn't go up.
Yeah. I've heard of this. I started like researching bread making because I thought I was going to get into it, and then I realized that, oh wait, chemotherapy hurts. Like this, I can't be
Yes.
making bread all the time. Like I have to go sit on the couch
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things is like, don't buy, like your local flour sucks was what all of the websites said.
Yes.
Like don't try to find like stone milled, or they were like, order this special flour from France. And I'm like, I don't think that I'm quite there yet. I don't think I'm ordering international flour good at bread.
No.
So I'm just going to wait.
I'm not there either. But it turns out that there's a flour mill that still mills with the stone, not that far from my house. And so I'm going to go visit it and buy some of their flour to
that's
see how it
awesome.
feels.
That's great.
Yes.
Then you're
exactly.
going to have a flour
So-
guy. You should get a
I'm
flour
gonna have a
guy,
flour
fish
guy.
You're like,
I know.
Unfortunately, you have a horse guy. We're getting rid of that too.
Despite my best intentions, I do have a horse guy.
Yeah.
Do you know that horse is actually legally in my name?
Yeah, you mentioned this to me, and it makes the story so much worse, because when you originally told me this, I just thought like, hey, like it'd be like kind of like buying somebody a car. Like you don't necessarily put it in their name immediately. You're like, I'm going to buy the car and then I'll transfer the title to you or something, right? Like,
Right.
so him legally put it in your name, and like if something happens to that horse, like in America, for example, like if that horse was on like a farm somewhere and it was like not eating or not being fed and it was bad, and like the government came in and was like, whose horse is this? Like you would be in trouble. Like you would get, like they would trace the registration and be like, why aren't you feeding this horse? This is terrible.
I know.
And so like I'm terrified of this idea of there, like you're responsible for a horse that's 18,000 miles away from you. It's ridiculous.
I don't even know how to take care of horses, Jeremy.
I mean, look, when Autumn goes on vacation, she leaves me literally Ziploc bags full of like 18 different ingredients that I'm supposed to feed the horses. I could never figure this
my
out on my
God.
own. So
Oh no. Oh, yeah, no, there's no way. But yeah, I have thought about that, and I'm like, what if, and how would he even transfer it to his name now?
yeah,
If
do
I'm
you
not
have to
signing off
sign
on it.
something? Do you have to like do something?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. I really don't know.
There's big drama
So-
in the horse world, by the way.
Oh,
Because,
tell me. Apparently, that's my world now. So
all right, yeah.
I'm a horse owner, so
The Olympics are happening, and
yes.
Charlotte
Unfortunately.
Desjardins is a famous dressage rider, and who has collected a wider range of awards, and is relatively like well internationally known for being one of the best trainers ever. Right, like she is
Okay.
elitist of the elite. And apparently, a video resurfaced of her from a couple of years ago, where she is just whipping the shit out of a horse during a training
no.
session. So she like released a statement saying that she was going to withdraw from the Olympics, and then the FEI, who kind of oversees the horse side of the Olympics, was like, actually you're suspended. And now somebody has like
Ooh.
put the video out there, even though it's from like 2.5 years ago or something. So the whole horse world is exploding. And I made the mistake of like seeing this on TikTok and then telling Autumn like, oh, hey, here's the video, like you should check it out. And now my TikTok is nothing but horse
You
stuff.
shared.
Yes. TikTok is like, oh, you like horses? And I'm like, I don't. Please stop. Please go back to Elden Ring
That's
videos.
so funny. Yes, exactly. Oh my God, my Instagram is kind of doing that to me right now, to be honest, because my dad is doing this ultra cycling event, which is like 4,000 kilometers from Italy all the way to the Arctic Circle. He's crazy,
Insane.
but he's enjoying it. So whatever. And so I've been following like the Instagram account of the race, right, to try to see like what they're posting and everything. And now I get ads for cycling stuff, and
Yep.
I hate cycling so badly.
I'm a known hater of bicyclists. I know it's not PC. I know it's not cool. But I've just never liked them. Never liked to do it on a bicycle on a sidewalk. Like it's always irritated me since I was a young child. And I hate them. I don't try to hit them with my car anymore. I think I've grown.
Oh gosh.
I've matured in my
I mean,
life.
I don't mind the cyclists, to be
Nope.
fair. I just hate cycling myself. Like, why? Why would you do this to yourself?
Collect the whole set. I hate all of it. Why do you have
Well,
those
to be
weird
fair,
pants
it's
on?
also that like the roads in America aren't really like,
Yeah, it's really really bad.
You know.
Yeah.
they're not made for cycling.
Once you start like looking for just like pedestrian walkways in Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
especially, our towns are not built for it whatsoever. Like it is
Right.
astoundingly bad. There's a highway that I drive down every day to get to the interstate, and a couple people I see on a regular basis are like riding their bicycle basically like there is hardly any shoulder, so it's like basically on the road. And
Yeah.
people do like 65 miles an hour, which is probably 100,000 kilometers per hour. I don't remember what the
Obviously, yes,
yeah.
that makes sense. Yes.
People are traveling very fast down that road, and I'm just terrified I'm going to come across an accident someday because I mean that just seems inevitable because there's nowhere for them to be, and they're bicycling to work. So like I don't, what are you going to do? Anyway. Let me get on my high horse about this.
No horses!
No horses. No horses allowed.
Oh my God. Ugh.
Are
we ready to talk about this episode? Do we have anything to talk about?
Are you ready to talk about this episode? I think it's going to be the first question.
Oh my God. I feel like I need to talk about this episode. Like I need to exercise it from my body.
So I listened to the first 2 episodes when I was editing them, and we actually did the intros differently each time. So the first time we did like kind of how I have it in the notes right now. And then the second time we actually said the episode we were covering. And listening to it, I don't know if you have yet, I've kind of prefer the first way where we just say like, here's the podcast, the intro, and then we introduce the episode after the intro. It just kind of sounded better to me, but I wanted to get your opinion and see if you had an opinion on it at all.
To be honest, I haven't listened to the episodes. I listened to the first one and I thought that was good.
Okay. Well, that's the first one is where we did that, so we'll go that way.
Well, there you go. I liked that part. So. And
then we can DM about this. This isn't necessarily important. But I've done before, and I don't know if it really works with a 1-minute video, but I've done like premieres for like YouTube videos, right?
Oh yeah.
So you can kind of time it, you can schedule it, people can like gather, and then like everyone can like be in the chat. It's gonna be really weird for a 90-second video because like the lead up will take longer. Like it'll be a 10-minute thing, and like a minute and a half will be the actual content. Do you want to do that? I guess first and foremost was going to be my question. And then if we launch on the 4th, like, do you want to release the trailer in the first episode, like have all of that happen that Sunday at the same time as with the video, or like put out the trailer earlier, or I don't know what makes sense. I kind of wanted to pick your brain about it.
Okay, so that's a really good question. I'm thinking I would like maybe the first episode to come out on the 4th and the trailer to maybe come out like the day before or 2 days before, just to kind of get people like excited about it.
Yeah.
So that people can actually like subscribe to the feed and everything.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
And then we can do like the video launch when we release the trailer, right? Like we can have those happen at the same time. So we can schedule that. I can put the links in the show notes and all that stuff. So it'll just all happen magically.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Well, let's plan on doing that like Saturday the 3rd. And then I'll start putting out like notices with people and being like, hey, you need to show up here on the 3rd.
Yes, exactly. Hang out with us on the 3rd.
Yeah, and hopefully by then like our Gmail will be restored.
Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Like, what is the reason that they gave you anyway?
It didn't.
For this?
It just said it just violated the terms of service, and I don't know if it was like creating it and then not using it. Like maybe they thought that somebody was just creating fake accounts or something. But
that's right, because I didn't create the Twitter immediately after. I was like, whatever, I have time for this.
Yeah, and I haven't done, like, I was logging in to do the YouTube, right, because it's associated with the Gmail account, so I was going to like do all of that stuff. It's like I got completely blocked. Google just completely blocked me. So hopefully we'll have all that stuff figured out. But okay, so yeah.
Well, they said 2 business days, right? So technically tomorrow or Friday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fun.
Hopefully so.
I can't believe that Gmail is being so rude.
Same.
So rude.
So rude. And speaking of rude,
We're
that's all I got.
Hannibal eat them.
If you want to talk about Hannibal eating people, we can jump in.
I do want to talk about Hannibal eating people. Nothing would give me more pleasure.
He doesn't eat anybody in this episode, though, or unless he saved some stuff.
I know. I'm very sad about that.
Maybe he saved some bits. We don't know.
Well, it's the whole thing about like honoring every part, right?
Yep.
Where nothing goes to waste. So, so creepy. Okay, I'm ready.